11 of the 20 largest mega yachts in the world have been built by Lürssen. From the outside, their size is truly impressive, and those few who have ventured inside are even more impressed by the luxury and by the quality of the interiors. But where the real magic happens on these incredible vessels is in the engine room. Powerhouses creating sufficient energy to push thousands of tons of ship through the world's oceans in silence and with no vibration whatsoever. I came to the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show to meet Dr. Justus Reiner, Managing Director of Lürssen, and to learn more about these yachts. But first, I took a look at a Lürssen on display here, Coral Ocean, a 73-metre yacht on display with Ahoy Club, who very kindly allowed my team and I to come on board and to look around. Now, this yacht was built in 1994. Back then I was working for a production yacht manufacturer making yachts out of fiberglass. I never dreamt that anything like this even existed. Behind that door is a world of engineering that was absolutely cutting edge in its day, and even now represents the best in its field. After that. Starting here in the control room, a space big enough for the chief engineer, the second engineer and an electric technology engineer to work in comfort. I asked the chief engineer for a few details. So let's start with the fuel transfer pumps. Why would you need to transfer fuel from one place to another?
So on a vessel this size, you're going to have multiple fuel tanks. They're spread throughout the length of the ship, and as you're consuming fuel from each of the tanks, it's going to affect how the ship is balanced. You start using fuel from one side, then the ship will start heeling over. So you have to be able to adjust the positioning of the fuel on board to keep an even keel.
Because that affects the performance of the boat, does it?
It will affect the performance of the vessel to a certain extent, but what it affects more is the stability of the vessel.
Now, what really interested me is I realised when I came down here yesterday that this is not just about creating power for the engines, but actually you're creating power for the whole yacht here. How do you cope with all of that power management on board?
Yeah, so we have multiple generators on board. On this vessel we have 3 generators, and on modern vessels you have a power management system. So there's a small computer that monitors the power consumption on board, and there is limits set in there. Once you reach your limit, it will automatically start the next generator, bring it online, so you always have enough power available to supply all services on board. And then you have additional protection systems so that if the power is not coming on fast enough, it can automatically shed non-vital loads such as your laundry or your galley to compensate so you don't black the vessel out.
When you say it sheds unnecessary loads, how does that actually work? Does it just close them down?
So for load shedding, what we have is what they call non-vital consumers. They're not vital to the safety of operation of the vessel. So as you reach a certain peak power and you don't have anything available, the power management automatically sends a signal to trip the circuit breaker supplying those areas.
So that's in quite extreme situations where you're really using pretty much all of the power.
You're really using a lot of load. You've suddenly got a lot of load on the switchboard very quickly, and the second generator is not starting fast enough, and that will drop out those loads that aren't essential so that all the other essential services stay on.
The control room is of course just looking in on the heart of the yacht, into the engine room. So I asked Scott to show me around some of the more interesting features. I recognised of course the 2 powerful Caterpillar engines on board, but I had to ask what this large unit on a higher level was in between the engines. Even I know that those are 2 engines. they're Caterpillars.
Yes, they're Caterpillar 3516s.
But what I'm not sure of is what that is in the middle of the 2 engines with the 2 spheres there. What is that?
So on board this vessel we use compressed air for starting all of our engines. It's similar to how a starter motor works on a traditional engine, except instead of using electricity to drive it round, it uses compressed air. So we have 2 pressure vessels over there that store air at 170 bar. And that is what we use, because you have to have a minimum number of sequential starts on your engines for safety purposes.
Okay, so what's the advantage of not having engine batteries?
So engine batteries, they take up a lot of space. They're very heavy, and for multiple large engines, you have to have quite a lot of batteries to be able to have enough power. Batteries take a lot of maintenance. They degrade quite quickly, especially if you're keeping them in an engine room. They don't like those high temperatures. Air starting as well, where there's much more power from an air starter. So engines this size, if you were running an electric starter, you'd have to have 2 starter motors on the engine to be able to start it. Whereas with an air starter, you only have 1 starter. So you're reducing the number of components you have to have on the engine and number of things you have to maintain.
And you were telling me as well about the water cooling system on board yesterday. Can you explain how all that works?
Yeah, so on this vessel, I mean, most people know what air conditioning is. You know, keeps your house cool, keeps your car cool. But on vessels like this, it's not quite the same sort of system you'd be used to at home. What we have is we have a central system with traditional air compressors, but what we're actually doing is cooling water. That water is chilled down to about 7 degrees Celsius, and then that water is circulated around the vessel then to chiller units that supply all the rooms on board. We'll have certain large units that are cooling all the air coming into the vessel, pre-cooling it and removing all the moisture from the air to control humidity. That is then supplied to all the rooms, and then we have smaller units in the rooms to control the local temperature.
And it certainly works, even though I am sweating a little bit. Nonetheless, I can feel the air conditioning even here in the engine room. Great, thanks for that, Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
You're
indeed.
welcome.
That was so interesting, and actually Scott was telling me that over the years a number of big changes have been made to the yacht. For example, back in the day, a large yacht like this would pick up water into a ballast tank to affect the trim of the vessel. Then when it was no longer needed in some other ocean, in some other part of the world, it would eject that water. We now know that that's not terribly good for the environment, because it could have picked up all kinds of organisms in the original water that don't belong in the next lot of water and cause untold damage. So they fitted a ballast water treatment system on board, as well as a sewage water treatment system. In fact, the yacht has been subject to all kinds of modernizations and upgrades over the years, so it really is a completely modern yacht now. We're here though to talk to Dr. Justus Rayner, the Managing Director of Lürssen, about how modern Lürssens are built. I'm told we can find him over here. We have come though to talk to Dr. Justus Rayner, the Managing Director of Lürssen, to hear about modern propulsion systems. Before we got started though, I asked him about the amazing refit work that Lürssen does.
Of course, we like to have our yachts back at our shipyards, and I think it's wise to bring them back to the manufacturer who actually built it. And we do have the knowledge to do all kind of jobs, being it maintenance, things, or you know, just larger refit jobs or conversions, and it's quite a substantial part of our business.
So people want to repaint the yachts, they want new systems.
Exactly, new systems, upgrade things. Sometimes, you know, they like to change the interior, or, you know, just bring the most recent technology on board, being it propulsion or power systems or other comfort systems.
And actually that's the main purpose of this video, is to really talk about the way that technology at Lürssen has advanced over the years. So a modern Lürssen that's being built, how would that differ from a yacht in 1994 like Coral Ocean?
Yeah. So actually, I mean, with every yacht we take some steps and advance just things. And since '94, we have, you know, heavily worked on getting energy consumption down. For instance, in '97 we delivered Limitless, which was the first hybrid yacht at that time. We do a lot of waste heat recovery and have, put on several systems to use actually the heat, for instance, to make fresh water out of salt water, or to heat other comfort systems like pools or things like that.
So this is the heat that's generated from the engines, is that right?
Yes, exactly.
And then what happens to that heat?
You can use it to just extract fresh water out of salt water in these kind of processes. So that saves a lot of energy which you would use otherwise there. Okay. And there's all kinds of other things. So our engineers, they like heat actually to run several systems. Yeah.
So tell me about the engines. How have engines improved over the years?
The engine manufacturers, so our suppliers, they did quite a lot of advancements on themselves, of course, in particular bringing the fuel consumption down. But we have worked as well heavily on the exhaust side. So we came up with an exhaust after-treat system called CAS, which is providing very clean exhausts by putting together a combination of systems actually, which is an SCR catalytic reactor, the silencer, and the step we have just taken is also to get the diesel particle filter in. So it's a very small system if you compare it to others, which is providing very clean exhausts, and we've been very quick in the industry to be IMO Tier 3 compliant with that.
So you have heat recovery from the engines used to heat the swimming pool, for example. You have the exhausts kept as clean as they possibly can be. The engine manufacturers themselves are working on it. One of the most exciting things that I saw is actually Tessumo. Can you tell me about that?
That's a material we have come up with as an alternative to teak for obvious reason, because teak is a very rare material and we try to avoid using it. And I think very few people would notice if you come on the stand and actually everyone is assuming it's teak.
Yeah, so this is a far more sustainable wood.
Yes.
That's really been developed by Lürssen.
Yeah.
And actually I made a video about that a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. I'm going to put a link to that video in one of the corners of the screen. I can never remember which corner it is. I think it's that one, so that you can see more about Tessumo. Coming back to the engines though, of course the engines have been refined and improved over the years, but they still burn fossil fuel. Possibly the most exciting advancement on that front is also developed by Lürssen. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I can tell you a lot of things actually, and I'm really happy that we can talk about it these days, because there have been quite some developments to get where we are. And I would say we just walk over to the model and we explain a bit more in detail about our fuel cell technology.
That would be great.
Very good.
The most unusual yacht I've ever seen, I have to say.
Yeah, that's a very different model than the usual ones we have. Yes.
So what am I looking at here?
Yeah. So what you see is a visualization basically of the yacht's power plant, and in its core, it's the hydrogen fuel cell systems which come together with these systems from our partner Freudenberg, which we work with for quite some time now. And because the energy density of hydrogen, even if it's liquid and very pressurized, is just too low, we use methanol as an energy carrier. And it works in a way that we take the methanol and make hydrogen out of it on board with a methanol into hydrogen reformer. And then the fuel cells run with hydrogen and produce electricity. The electricity then is being provided to the main switchboard and to batteries if needed, so you could balance the loads with the batteries. And from here, you either propel the boat or the hotel load, which I'm sure is working.
So these are methanol tanks?
Yes, exactly.
You don't have to store hydrogen, because, well, it's stored in a small amount there, but as soon as it's created, it feeds the fuel cells, which charge the battery. So you actually burn no fossil fuel whatsoever.
No, we don't. And You know, to get net zero, it is important that we use green methanol, and there's more and more projects coming up which are producing green methanol, which may be made out of biomass or out of renewable energies like wind or solar.
Really? And is methanol easy to come by, or is that going to be a problem?
Yeah, that's a big advantage actually we have with methanol. So first of all, you can bunker it in standard bottom tanks, so it is more easy to accommodate in the general arrangements than pressure tanks, for sure. And second of all, you know, it's a liquid which you could actually pump. And what we do have at the moment is an innovation lab or demonstrator sitting in Lemverde, and there we are already working with these procedures and bunker methanol.
Now, how far along are we? Is this something that I'll see in my lifetime?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we do have already one contract with a 1 megawatt installation, which will be delivered late 24.
Oh wow, next year, no, 2 years' time.
In 2 years' time, yeah. So it's actually very near. And you can, as I said, also have a look at the actual technology onshore at our shipyard in Bremen. So it's here and it is available and it is working.
Wow. How long has it taken to do the research on this?
Well, we are, together with partners, working on it since 2005, and in 2008 the first Paxel project came up. Now we are in Paxel 2, as said, together with company Freudenberg, who's providing some core elements of the system. So it has been quite a long ride to get here.
Yeah, a lot of research, and if anybody can do it, I think Lürssen can do it, and it's something to look forward to.
Yeah, and I hope we are not the only ones who will do it, because it's important that, you know, I think we align as well as an industry on a certain path to come up with net zero yachting.
I must admit, I was really looking forward to filming this video, not only because so many viewers always want to see the engine rooms of yachts, but also because it was an opportunity to show the past, the present, and the future of what Lürssen mega yachts are like. Actually, on their website, and I'll put a link to their website in the description below, there's a comment that says you can't plan for eureka moments, but you can set the stage for them. And I think what Lürssen are doing is setting the stage, putting in place the technology for all kinds of great inventions for the future that personally I can't wait to see what does happen with Lürssen in the future.
Thanks very much.